We're live morning news up at Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We're streaming all across the world on 3news.com. You can also watch us live on Facebook and X at 3FM 927 right now. Coming up this evening, 12 persons found guilty in the murder trial of Major Maxwell Mahama, sentenced to life imprisonment. We'll take you to the court and tell you why the Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah-Dame says it should serve as a deterrent against mob justice in the country. Stay with us here on Hot Edition. We have more on this developing story.
This we have seen that mob justice does not pay. Ultimately, the Ministry of Justice will catch up with you, and if you think that you can resort to justice by yourself, you yourself will be dealt with in accordance with law.
As Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, Attorney General, Minister of Justice there. Also, the Ghana Police Service tops again in Corruption Perception Index, with almost 50% of citizens thinking the Ghana Police Service is corrupt. Later in the bulletin, we'll tell you proposals by the Electoral Commission to change the date for the 2024 elections from December 7 to November 2024 appears to have hit a snag as political parties urge the Electoral Commission to suspend the said idea. It should not even be thinking about that. That's the resolve of some of the political parties at the Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting earlier today. We have these plus the latest in business, sports and entertainment coming up over the next 60 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. I am Alfred Ocansey. Welcome. Let's get into the details now. As the Ghana Police Service tops again in Corruption Perception Index, with almost 50% of citizens thinking the Ghana Police Service is corrupt. The police service has topped the list of most corrupt institutions in Ghana in the latest CDD Afrobarometer survey. The survey report states that about 41% of citizens had corrupt encounters with the Ghana Police Service. Officials at the presidency and tax officers were cited as the next in that order, as the report criticized government for failing to deal with corruption. A colleague, Beatrice Edo, who sat through the forum earlier today, has put together this report giving highlights of exactly what was captured in the latest Corruption Perception Index.
The latest Afrobarometer survey on corruption perception does not seem to have given any hopes at all as regards whether or not Ghana as a country is improving on dealing with corruption. It's a survey that was done within 39 African countries, and per the report presented by a representative from the CDD, let me just run you through it. It says that, for instance, 11% of Africans believe corruption is a priority that must be addressed. That is the overall view of Africans. When you come to Ghana, about 14% of Ghanaians want it addressed. And when it comes to issues that are most important for Ghanaians, for governments and institutions to address, corruption becomes number 7 for them. Again, the survey gave the indication that a number of people or citizens are concerned. It seems corruption is rather on an increasing level rather than reducing. Again, which is where you've got your lead from, or you've got about 50% of citizens think that the police is still corrupt, and I'm sure you recall that it will not be the first time that you would have the police topping the list of institutions that are most corrupt in Ghana and across Africa. Citizens that were spoken to were also concerned about officials at the presidency who they believe are increasingly becoming corrupt. They talked about tax officials as well as parliament, judges and magistrates. Now, the conclusion of that survey gave the indication that it seems the public is concerned that the government is not doing enough, has failed actually to deal with corruption. And there's also the other scenario of anti-corruption institutions that probably are not effective or perhaps not doing enough to deal with or raise awareness issues about corruption. But there's also another interesting twist to this, which is whether or not people even have the luxury to report corruption. And aside from Mauritania, it seems almost all the other African countries that they did this survey within think that their lives were at stake if they reported cases of corruption. And so basically, these are the issues they've been talking about. As we speak, one of the respected representatives from the World Bank, Professor Daniel Kaufman, is also giving his views as regards what he's gathered on corruption and dealing with it.
So that's Beatrice Edu is sitting through the presentation of the details of the Afrobarometer survey, specifically capturing the corruption perception index. We'll get a bit more into that as we go on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's go on to the telephone. Adam Sananu is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Sanu, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition. There are three things I'm going to take away from the brief detail we got from Beatrice Edu on the Afrobarometer survey around 10. Now, what we're learning is that a number of the people who were surveyed in this round indicated that they felt threatened if they report acts of corruption. There was no sense of protection. I mean, we have the Whistleblower Act that is supposed to assure persons who blow the whistle on acts or actions of corruption some level of protection, but it appears not to be enough, is it?
Well, yes, and it's not a really new finding, because in previous years, the reportage has shown clearly that persons have said that for two reasons. One, the fact that they don't expect anything to change, and two, for the fact that they anticipate being victimized. They were not inclined to report. And in terms of the Whistleblowers Act, we are aware that we had incidents where people reported, and then the criminal concerned was able to establish who it was and give the person a call. So we have said over time that the Whistleblowers Act is not fit for purpose in terms of the systems in place to protect the identity of the reporter. So the findings are not entirely new and therefore not that surprising.
Talk about findings not entirely new and not surprising. We see the same picture as it were playing out in the rankings of the Corruption Perception Index. Now you have the Ghana Police Service again taking that unenviable position of number one, perceived most corrupt institution, followed by the presidency, and then you have the judiciary and others following in that order as well. Does this also come consistent with what you would have expected, especially because for the Ghana Police Service, the IGP has been very consistent in making the point quite strongly that they're changing the image of the Ghana Police Service, but in the minds of the people, that image still remains the same.
Well, this one, I don't know whether it's just about in the eyes of the people. Mind you, that the police service is probably the largest public service entity that has a face-to-face, real-time engagement with citizens, unlike other elements or units of the public service, say the audit service. You don't have the audit service engaging with citizens every day, broad daylight, on the roadside, or even in the evenings. The police service tends to have the largest number of people who are doing frontal engagements. And in those engagements, I mean, truth be told, from time to time you see people passing money, doing things. I think it's going to take a lot of effort by any IGP or the police service to clean up that act. They probably need a lot more undercover agents, like the mystery shopper type, and making it the punishment so severe that when you are caught, and because there's a system, they know that there's going to be random, isolated picking up of people plainclothes people just creating trouble to see whether you collect money from us. They need to be very proactive, kind of ANA style, if they're going to clean up the system.
So, in terms of being proactive, what are the specific actions or steps that you expect? Because if you listen to the IGP, and I go back to some of the things he's been talking about, specific instances of putting certain reforms in place to as it were, get the Ghana Police Service personnel, even on the road, at these checkpoints, to be of good behavior. And I recall after the Christmas festivities, when they gathered at the headquarters of Ghana Police Service, a number of them said that they even declined taking money from the public when they were offered willfully. And then you'll see this report as well. So what has to be done?
Yeah, so I'm saying that it's not enough for the police themselves to report that they've taken action A, B, and C. What the police itself ought to do is probably, as it were, commission, contract, engage the services of undercover, whatnot, to be doing this for them from a neutral, objective perspective, collecting data and evidence that is credible for them to be able to see how well are they performing. It's one thing when we do a self-assessment. It's another thing when you get a third party. And when your people know that there's a third party that is bound to come, is choosing randomly, and this is a permanent system in place, they'll be much more cautious. So I'm talking about the sanction part. The incentives in terms of better training, better equipment, making sure that they know what they should do. I mean, those things are one part of behavior change. But how do we deal with the sanction part? How are we collecting the evidence in a manner that is systematic and credible, that nobody can argue with? That's where I'm saying they probably need some additional work with the monitoring part. And if they really want it to be objective, because you see, we have this thing of rub my back, I rub your back. So if it's another policeman, you probably have the situation where somebody will just call and say, hey, this is what is about to happen. So get a third party that might be neutral, objective, contract services, find a way of doing this outside your space so that you can deal with it adequately.
How about the presidency as well, coming in second?
Presidency, that was a big issue. It's an omnibus issue. We don't know what is happening there, so I am unable to comment. I mean, for me, when I look at it, it's always surprising when I see presidency there. Because you see, the police, we say that they are out there on the street and people are engaging. When the presidency comes up like that, then there must be things that people know some of us are not aware about. I think it's also that we have too much that is centered in that space. It's one of the reasons why constitutional change is important, that we don't have an executive presidency where everything is happening in there. And so we have a very large, presidential workforce, and we can't tell whether it's entirely justified or not. I think that we need some serious thinking about the presidential, arrangement and framework, and we definitely need to do some constitutional changes if we are going to make sure that we don't have the situation we see.
I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
Adam Sano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption there. If you just join us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, the Ghana Police Service tops again in Corruption Perception Index, with almost 50% of citizens who were captured in this perception index thinking the Ghana Police Service is corrupt. The police service has topped the list for most corrupt institutions in Ghana in the latest CDD Afrobarometer survey. This is the 7th time continuously they have topped this Corruption Perception Index. The survey report states that about 41% of citizens had corrupt encounters with the Ghana Police Service. Officials at the presidency and tax officers were cited as the next in that order, as the reports also criticized government for failing to deal with corruption or putting enough measures in place to deal with corruption. But if you recall, during the Christmas festivities, the Ghana Police Service deployed what they call the Operation Father Christmas. When they convened after the festivities to, as it were, go through some debriefing at the Ghana Police headquarters, some of them indicated that they did reject bribes from the members of the general public.
Advices on extortion, and when you go there to truly, these civilian, some of them like to be giving us money, but by God's grace, we always reject this kind of money.
Meanwhile, Director General.
Well, that does not, in fact, influence the survey details as we have seen now. We'll give you a bit more detail as we go on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also, the special prosecutor, Kessie Jabeng, has also been speaking about this round 10 of the Afrobarometer survey that captures the corruption perception index. Here's a detail and his response to some of the issues that came up as well during the presentation of the details of this corruption perception index.
In addition to the well-known challenges affronting the fight against corruption, the OSP faces a formidable existential challenge. Its very essence and existence is held so tightly as if in a vice to scatter it. It should perhaps not be surprising as its creation itself was greeted with immense skepticism, and it was attended by argument against argument as to why it was needed.
Its very essence and existence is hemmed so tightly as if in a vice to scuttle it. It should perhaps not be surprising as its creation itself was greeted with immense skepticism, and it was attended by argument against argument as to why it was needed at all. Will it not be a duplication? Will it be allowed to function properly? Do we even need it? The questions poured. In fairness, the questions themselves were not altogether problematic. After all, we must carefully examine the utility for the creation of an institution. However, the result was the creation of an institution with never-before-seen powers and mandates, yet with a plethora of half-hearted provisions in the enactments, which appear to render its operation a glimmer on the horizon. Along come the death knells. Not infrequently, we hear calls, a lot of the time from very high places, that the OSP should be scrapped, and that serves no useful purpose. On another score, there have been and there are attempts to discredit the office and its principal officers unfairly and unjustly, alongside formidable resistance and pushback. A careful examination of the reasons for the calls to do away with the OSP suggests that they are made without reference to the actual performance of the office in its 6 years of existence, and that the calls are born mainly of the teething challenges confronting the establishment of the office. Yet it bears reflecting that the creation and establishment of every institution come with the like circumstances of the pangs of childbirth and the raw emotion and anxiety of raising a child. These are natural. And the ordinary circumstances of mankind dictate that we must dutifully care for and nurture this 6-year-old child, which is the OSP, and not kill it. With forbearance, let us mark her growth and development. Condemnation at this stage is wholly unwholesome.
Kessie Jabeng is that's the Office Special Prosecutor speaking there, and the details as we have it. The program is ongoing. That's the State Capture and Corruption Worldwide Implications for Ghana and Africa. This is the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana Roundtable Conversation, where the details of the Corruption Perception Index have been put out today. If you're just joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, Kessie Jabeng, Special Prosecutor, is the one we just heard minutes ago. But the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, has noted that the sentencing of 12 convicts in the murder trial of the late Major Maxwell Mahama should serve as a deterrent to mob justice in the country. 12 persons who were found guilty by the jury were sentenced to life imprisonment, while 2 others were freed by the Criminal Court 3 of the Accra High Court earlier today. There's been 7 years of trial of the case involving the killing of the Major Maxwell Adam Mahama at the Denchroboase, and also the sentence by an Accra High Court is expected to offer the family of the soldiers some closure. We'll be engaging a court correspondent shortly, but first, let's take a listen to this particular instance and take you through every step of the way how the case has played out. Maxwell Adam Mahama, who was then a captain of the army, was killed by a mob at Denchroboase in the Central Region on the 29th of May 2017. 14 persons, including the assemblyman of the area, William Barr, were the suspects in the case. The charges that were leveled against them: abetment of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and murder. The case was handled by the Supreme Court Judge Mariam Owusu, who sat in as additional High Court judge together with a 7-member jury. My colleague Lord Edwasari is our court correspondent. He sat through the entire proceedings today. He's joining me in the studio. Lord, now you were there. You saw the reactions after this pronouncement or this judgment was read. How was especially the countenance of the family of the late Major Mahama?
So, Alfred, we had the mother of Major Maxwell Adam Mahama, together with some of his siblings, all clad in funeral clothing, if I should say. The mother had a red scarf around her neck, and everyone else was clad in black. And then there was a delegation from the north who were also present or to support. And you could see that there was a lot of sadness, grief, especially for the mother. I can actually count the number of times that she had to be escorted out of the courtroom because she was overcome with emotion. At some point, immediately, even before the case was called, Alfred, the 14 accused persons were escorted into the courtroom. Now, immediately she saw them, she just overcome with emotion. She burst out, started calling them murderers, and she began to cry to the point of wailing. And one of Major Mahama's brothers had to escort her out, go and comfort her before she was brought back to the courtroom. And then the case was called. And throughout, when the presiding judge was reading the summary of the case before the jury will pass their verdict, you could see she was constantly looking the direction of where the accused persons were seated, and then she was occasionally passing invectives at them. So you could see that this was someone who had been pained for a very long time, 7 years, Alfred, and they say the wheels of justice grind slowly. And all this time, you can see that she's been harboring a lot of pain, and so her eyes were bloodied, really. And at some point, she had to wear shades just to cover what was going on. And then when the verdict was eventually passed, life sentence for the 12 persons and then the 2 who were acquitted, at that point, there was a literal celebration. They were elated. Major Mahama's family, you could see the celebration at their end.
Right, so the 12 who have been convicted, does that include the assemblyman?
Yes, so
William Barr?
William Barr, he was the first accused person. Now, per the prosecution, he's the one who actually instigated the whole thing, right, Alfred? So, per the brief facts of the case, a trader whom the late Major Mahama bought something from, snails, once she saw the gun which was strapped at his side, she made a call to the assemblyman. Now, the assemblyman did not get into the matter, do his due diligence and check whether this person that they're alleging to be an armed robber was indeed a robber or a military person, garnered people and attacked Major Mahama to his death. So his charge was abetment to crime, namely murder, and he was found guilty. And then the 13 or 11 others were charged with conspiracy to commit murder and then committing murder. The 2 others, Bismarck Abanga and Bismarck Donko, they were free of the charge because after the prosecution, the cross-examination, prosecution witness delivered their testimonies and everything. They fell on, or they used video evidence. There were recordings of what had transpired on the day, and then there were other witnesses as well. Now, the 2 who had been discharged were not placed on site or on scene of some of them who were, although they were present, did not really actively play a role in.
That's Bismarck Donko and Bismarck
Abanga, indeed.
Okay, were the accused persons represented by their counsel?
Yes. The
Okay.
Legal representations of them. They actually tried to have the case thrown out, Alfred. If you recall, back in July 2022, they filed a submission of no case, saying that there was no substantive evidence against their clients, and so wanted the case to be thrown out. But then Justice Mariama also nullified that, and then threw the case out that there were substantive evidence against them, and so the case had to go on, and that's why a 7-member jury was put in place for this case to go on, Alfred.
Okay, Lord, thank you very much for running through what happened earlier today in court. So that's the development now. If you're just joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, a court has sentenced 12 suspects to life imprisonment for their involvement in the killing of Major Maxwell Mahama. They've been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and murder. The 12 include the former assemblyman for Denchinaboase, William Ba. And I'm going to give you the names of the other 11 persons, but joining us on the telephone for a quick conversation on this, lawyer Christian Mamhesi, who's been following this case as well quite closely. Counsel, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. 12 out of 14 accused persons given life sentences, 2 acquitted and discharged. For the convicts, is that the highest sentence for this crime committed?
Yeah, good evening, my brother Alfred, and to your listeners alike. Yes, it is the highest. You realize that for capital offences, it's death, but with the amendment thereof, life imprisonment is what avails. And in this situation, you have persons who have been committed or were charged with abetment and conspiracy. And the law is such that anybody who directly or indirectly instigates or procures or in any form facilitates the committal of an offense, that person to be cited for having aided and abetted with the main parties who instigated the offense. And just as your reporter rightly said, and from other gleaned stories of the facts, indicate that the assemblyman, having heard about all of this, garnered other people to commit that particular act, which ended in the death of the slain army officer. So you look at what the law says about murder. It deals with the fact that where there is an intention to cause harm which results in death, then that person can be held to have committed murder. And it basically deals with intention. So there must be intention. And prosecution was able to establish that, yes, indeed, intentions sufficed. And that resulted in the death of the chap. Aside that, with the other parties who aided the main actors, prosecution was able to again establish the elements of conspiracy, which I mentioned some of them. That is to act directly, instigate, command, counsel, procure, facilitate, encourage other people, or promote, all of these things to the committal of an offense. Then you could be cited as having aided, abetted, or conspired to have that particular offense come off. And the important thing to note is that where one encourages another to commit murder, he or she would be guilty of abetting the murder in this particular situation. So it runs with it, and that is how come you have them charged as that.
I see some comprehensive detail there, and what we do know at least for now is that after the jury was discharged, and then now Justice Mariama also obviously following up with the details as we have it. Now, based on the responses from our court correspondent, it's indicated that the family, even though had some sense of closure, they are asking for something more. I mean, the family also considering the idea of suing the convicts and the acquitted persons for some level of compensation or something of a sort. Is that part of a conversation or consideration going forward for the family?
So, in criminal jurisprudence, and as our criminal code inform us, the law is that, in criminal law, there are various forms of punishment. It can be by death, which now we have taken out to be life imprisonment. It can be term of imprisonment. It can be fine. It can be compensation. It can be police supervision in respect of anything, So the court having come to a conclusion in the criminal sense as this. Yes, as far as the criminal road is concerned, that's the end of it. Unless the court in its conclusive remarks added any other thing, the verdict of the jury is what it is, especially when it was a unanimous decision to come to that conclusion. In the situation where, being the fact that that unanimity wasn't there, we would have had a hung jury, which would have caused a problem for us of this trial. But fortunately for us, they all agreed that indeed the persons that were committed, that they were convicted, indeed ought to have had that. If you consider the others that they also acquitted and discharged, it basically means that after the judge summed up the law and directed the jury, indeed this is a pivotal rule in the indictment procedure at trial, that the judge presiding together with the jury must take control over, because the jury are lay people who are drawn from the town, so that it will not just be an expert who sits down to decide over the criminality or otherwise of persons in fact, nature of crime, but ordinary people who will be directed on the state of the law in order to come to a conclusion. So they acquitted and discharged, which means that those persons are never liable to the offenses that were leveled against them, and all of that in layman's sense have been robbed of, cleansed of, and they are free to go, and that's it for them. So for the two, they are free to go. They have been acquitted and discharged, never to raise this matter against them. But for the others, they would proceed to live their life.
But I just wanted a quick question on this. So at the civil level, can the family also sue for compensation?
Yes, when you explore the areas of law of tort, where one causes harm, which results in death or injury, law of tort tells us that you can always open up for compensation. I cannot be on airways to advise them on what to do, but it is for them to seek options with their lawyers on what they can do in the law of tort as far as their slain son and father is concerned.
Counsel, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your time, as always.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay. That's lawyer Hesse Malm, his private legal practitioner, joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Now to a story that has been also developing for quite a while now. The proposal by the Electoral Commission to change the date for the 2024 elections from December 7 to November 2024 appears to have hit a snag, as political parties have urged the commission to suspend the idea. A crucial meeting was held today to bring finality to the matter, as the opposition National Democratic Congress was set to push for major reforms ahead of the general elections. The proposal was a key item for discussion at the meeting, but while some parties want the Electoral Commission to do what it deems best, others were of the view that the proposal should be implemented post-2024. That's after the 2024 elections. Here are some of the reactions of the mates. First, let's take a listen to the Director of Elections of the NDC, Dr. Omane Boama, speaking to my colleague, Duke Mensa Opoku.
Like the EC waited after the 2016 elections. The EC could have pushed these reforms in 2017, 2018, and 2019, and not in an election year. If anybody makes the argument of COVID, it doesn't arise. COVID entered Ghana in March 2020. So 2017, 2018, and 2019, the EC voted the processes. Again, even beyond 2020, why did the EC wait? 2021 passed, 2022 passed, 2023 passed, only to want to do this in another election year. So we think that lessons must be learned from the past, so that from 2025, all these issues can be brought for activation, and then we can get the processes through Parliament.
Let's hear from Evans Namako, who is the Director of Elections of the New Patriotic Party as well, sharing his thoughts on this particular issue after the IPAC meeting earlier today.
Strangely, the NDC says no. And so we now leave everything in the care of the EC to come out with their program lineup for the year. And we see how it goes. I'm saying strangely, the NDC are saying no because they had in 2016 proposed the November 7 idea and had sponsored it even in Parliament, except that it could not pass. And today that would have gotten enough time to prepare towards December 7 or let it be November 7. They are saying no. And so for us as New Patriotic Party, we will leave it in the care of the EC. We'll wait for them to come out with their program lineup. We've also said that it is important we broadly consult so that every decision the EC will take will be what will enhance our democracy. So this is where we are as a party at IPAC and the position that came out from the discussion. What we have now is December 7th. And we are all aware of the challenges that has to do with the transition. And so it is the reason why the New Patriotic Party said that if the EC will be able to put together, put resources together, then they can have the November 4.
So that's Evans Namako, who is the Director of Elections of the New Patriotic Party. Let's get a bit more into this. And Duke Mensa Opoku sat through, they in fact monitored this Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting. The Electoral Commission is joining us in studio. Duke, it's always good to have you. Now, I recall in 2016 that Marietta Piopon, who was the Attorney General at the time, did bring this matter up in the Parliament at the time, but then it didn't go through. So what was the position, especially apart from the MPP and the NDC, which we have just heard, the other political parties who attended this meeting as well?
Well, so generally the feeling at the meeting we picked up was that they felt that the EC was introducing this proposal a bit late with, 11 months to an election. They think that in principle they agree with the EC's reasoning. And what is the EC's reasoning? The EC's reasoning is that in periods where they have to conduct runoffs, they have just 21 days to organize themselves for a national election of that magnitude, right? And then before that, then after that, then there is the inauguration of the president. So they think that timeline is very short for them, and because of that, they would want the polls to be conducted in November, so that once it's conducted from November all the way till January, they have time. If there's a runoff, they do that. If there's no runoff, they get to sort out the gazetting of the results and other things. They generally have a leeway and time to go about their work without the pressure that comes with that. But it looks like, yes, so the parties agree in principle, but there are others who think that we have 11 months to an election. Yeah. We are going to take the matter to Parliament. It has to be captured in the CI. The Constitution has to be amended to have that done. So really, what time are you going to canvass? What time are you going to put the proposal together, send it to Parliament? And because it's an entrenched clause of the Constitution, you would need a greater number of parliamentarians to vote for you. The last time it didn't pass the second reading stage because the same thing. The proposal went to Parliament in October. They said no, the EC is not prepared. So let's just drop the let's drop the proposal and come back to it later on. So it's the same argument right now. The tables have turned. It's the same argument that is being made and the NDC and other political parties are of the view that we can agree to it, but implement it, suspend and implement post 2024, maybe go in the 2028 elections. But this year, let's go with December 7 because that is what the calendar we all operate, and we will not go away. But the MPP, as we heard, they think that, well, let the EC consult and do what they think is in the best interest of Ghanaians and our electoral calendar. So while the NDC is taking it neck out, asking for suspension, the MPP really thinks the EC should do what they have to do, and they are also calling out the hypocrisy of the NDC because they think that in 2016 they mooted the idea, they were in support of it. So what has changed? And so those were some of the things that characterized the IPAC discussions. The next IPAC meeting will be in February. There are a number of proposals that are still being thought through. There's a proposal, for instance, on the indelible ink.
Right.
That's an issue that's yet to be determined. The proposal on the close of polls to 2 p.m. It's also on the table. And then the NDC is proposing something new, that they want the collation to be live on television, presidential collation. So sort of the strong room that we have live on television, beamed live, so that as the results are coming in, collation is being done. Everything is in the full glare of the Ghanaian public who can watch, and then for purposes of transparency and shining some sunlight on what happens in the strong room and the collation of that's what they are. So that all of that will be discussed going forward, and then the EC also put before them their tentative plan, for the electoral calendar that they will be rolling out this year. So some of those are issues. But today, what took center stage was this issue of election day change from December 7th to November 7th. So in February, they'll take it out from there, and we'll see how it pans out.
Definitely. Duke, appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much. Duke Mensah Poku has also monitored the Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting of the Electoral Commission earlier today. This is your Election Command Center. And as we've been telling you, the Ashanti Regional Chair of the New Patriotic Party, Bernard Boesiako, has been cleared by the Kumasi Traditional Council of alleged derogatory remarks made against the Asanteo 246 to the second during the NPP parliamentary vetting process. Chemawontumi denied all allegations leveled against him by the Kokusohene Nana Kwekudia. Now, he appeared before the council with party executives and government officials. Let's get a bit more into this, because the man who's a Northern Chief, Bureau Chief, and also a Chief Ashanti Regional Correspondent, William Evansinkum, is joining us on the telephone. William, can you hear me? Good evening.
Yeah, I can hear you, Alfred. Good evening, Alfred.
Now, you monitored this crucial meeting that Chairman Wontumi, we understand, has been cleared by the Kumasi Traditional Council. Now, who are the persons who accompanied him to this meeting?
Well, so the national chairman of the party, Stephen Tim, was there.
You have no call.
Until we lost William Evansinkum there, we'll try and reach William Evansinkum back on the telephone to get a bit more detail into what happened. But earlier, this is what we got from monitoring that meeting.
Menchia Palace, the seat of the Santehene, has remained one of the strongest traditional institutions in Ghana. When the Kumasi Traditional Council sits, members hear cases and adjudicate same. Cases have normally bordered on chieftaincy and land disputes. But today, they sit on a rather unusual case brought before it. It is political, but the mention of the Santehene has caught the attention of the palace. The council is normally chaired by the Santehene. In his absence, the Bantamahene, Nana Owusu-Amankwah the Sixth, chairs, especially issues emanating from Kumasi. On January 3, Wontumi was alleged to have made a derogatory comment about the Menchia Palace. Chief of Kokoso, Nana Kwekudia, who is also a council member of the NPP, lodged a complaint at the seat of Santehene against Chairman Wontumi.
My constituency chairman even tried to calm Wontumi, but he wouldn't listen. The first thing that came from his mouth was, look, nobody can gag me. Even if Otumfo says something which I disagree, I will challenge him. I have my own kingdom.
Wontumi, appearing before the Kumasi Traditional Council for the first time, denied the allegation.
It is never true. I never said that. The reason I evoked the dreaded river.
The chief of Kokoso was criticized by his fellow chiefs for indulging in partisan politics. Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs Stephen Asamoah Boateng reiterated the need for chiefs to abstain from partisan politics. Wontumi, on the other hand, was rebuked for evoking a curse on the chief of Kokoso. He has been asked to begin a process of reversing the curse.
That's William Evans in with that detail there. Here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Right after this, we have the business news with Michael Obodo. Stay with us.
Do you long for a space where your mind can roam free? Tune in every Thursday from 9 p.m. on 3FM 92.7. Uncensored with Stephanie Benson, where the night is as limitless as your imagination.
Hello, good evening. It's time for the business segment here on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, Ghana Union of Traders Associations GUTA calls for further cut in policy rate in future decisions as central bank announces reduction to 29%. Details coming up shortly. Please stay with us. Well, thank you for staying with us. Straight into our top story now. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has reduced the policy rate by 100 basis points to 29%. This follows a 3-day meeting to deliberate and review on the health of the economy. Pakwesi Asari was there and reports.
Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has justified the basis for which the Monetary Policy Committee decided to reduce the policy rate by 100 basis points to 29%.
Consumer confidence improved on account of easing inflation pressures, which led to optimism about future economic conditions. Similarly, business confidence increased significantly, signaling improving consumer demand as firms met short-term targets and expressed positive sentiments about company and industry prospects.
The policy rate is often indicative of the rate at which commercial banks borrow from the central bank and will mostly influence the rate at which you borrow from your commercial bank. Many analysts are worried about the increasing cost of borrowing in the country, with average interest rates hovering around 35%. Well, that perhaps explains the high non-performing loans ratio reported by the Bank of Ghana. With a gradual rise in economic recovery, many would have expected a bigger cut in the policy rate. But uncertainties about the global outlook with rising geopolitical tensions have constrained the Bank of Ghana's actions. The good news, however, is that there is an increase in business and consumer sentiment according to the latest bank survey and expectations of an ease in inflation by the end of the year.
That report was by my colleague Pakwesi Asari on the Bank of Ghana's justification for reducing its key lending rate by 100 basis points to 29%. Meanwhile, the Ghana Union of Traders Associations GUTA is calling for further cuts in the policy rate in future decisions. According to President of the association, Dr. Joseph Obeng, this will help reduce the cost of doing business.
Yeah, it's very important because the reduction will go a long way to also bring down the commercial lending rate down. But we will even want it to come down even further down so that it will have meaningful impact on the commercial lending rate. Now, the indicators are getting right, and we should go ahead and make sure that we sustain the stability that we are having now. If we are able to do that, it means that business community will have the respite and then also have the opportunity to recover again from their previous losses as a result of the inflation, the exchange rate, the effect of the exchange rate and the kind.
So that was President of the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, bringing an end to the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com. I am Michael Obudu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is sports, and Billy is on standby.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Lishen. We're going to start off from the Africa Cup of Nations, where a match is currently ongoing between Cape Verde and Mauritania in the round of 16, and it's halftime. The scoreline is 0-0. Later tonight, Senegal will be playing against host Ivory Coast. Let's move on to local football, where the Ghana Football Association's committee, headed by GFA Vice President Mark Addo, tasked with identifying a new coach for the Black Stars, has officially declared a deadline for interested candidates to submit their applications. The applications will be accepted until Friday, February 2nd, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. local time. The search committee has been mandated to explore coaching options even for those who may not formally apply. To some other stories, the Ministry of Youth and Sports reportedly budgeted $8.5 million to Ghana's AFCON campaign and has already requested for $5 million, according to former Deputy Minister Sam Akudzeto Ablakwa, who reviewed this on social media earlier today. Now, here is a quick breakdown of the figures for you. The total budget stated is $8.5 million. The amount requested by the Ministry of Youth and Sports currently, according to Sam Okudzeto, is $5 million. And the prize money, which was actually allocated for the winner of the AFCON competition entirely, is $7 million. Ghana are currently out of the competition after gaining just 2 points in the group stages. In European football, Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta has ruled Ghanaian midfielder Thomas Partey out of contention for the club's Premier League game against Nottingham Forest on Tuesday. Partey recently returned to training after a long injury layoff.
We've got some late decisions to make. Thomas won't be one of those, but we have a few that obviously we had some issues at the end of last game, and we're still uncertain with a few players. Well, it's what it is. You want everybody available, and he's a top player for us, really important player for us, but at the moment it's not fit yet. We will see. We will see how things evolve, and if that's too short, or that's okay.
That was Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta also addressed rumours about his future at Arsenal. He's been linked to a move to Barcelona.
For me? No. That's totally fake news. What you read yesterday is, I don't know where it's coming from, and it's totally untrue. I'm really upset about it.
Reaction?
I could not believe. I don't know where it's coming from, and it has no source. It's got nothing, and I think we have to be very cautious when you talk about personal things to put it in the way that it was put yesterday.
That brings an end to the sports segment here on a 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Lishen, and up next is entertainment with Akofa.
Hello there, we're glad you could join us here on a Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It's now time for the entertainment news segment powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Let's dive in now. Ghanaian Afro-pop singer and songwriter Wheeler and the Yaga Yaga thrilled music enthusiasts in a concert over the weekend. Affectionately called the Lioness of Africa, Wheeler says the event was a way to connect with fans here in Accra.
After embarking on several musical tours around the world, celebrated Ghanaian Afropop singer and songwriter Wheeler and the Yaga Yagas were live in action at the Plus 233 Jazz Bar and Grill. With her valued roots from the Upper West region of Ghana, Wheeler served music enthusiasts with songs of her yet-to-be-released album titled Shege Reggae. After a successful event, the Lioness of Africa, as she's affectionately called, was excited to have shared her craft with music lovers here in Accra.
And people always say, oh, Wheeler doesn't like to be in Accra. No, it's not like I don't want to be in Accra. I wasn't born in Accra. I grew up my whole life in the north. So it became quite difficult after winning Vodafone Icons to live in Accra. I just didn't feel like I could do much or I could make that much musical, artistic things that I needed. So I needed to move away, go back to my community. After a while, it's always good that I come back to Accra because I'm not just the daughter for the sisterless. I am the daughter of Ghana. So when I go home, I have peace of mind to put 1 or 2 things together. And then when I'm cooked with everything, then I come to Accra because Accra is the big place. So that's why I'm bringing this concert here, so that Ghanaians will know that I am still a Ghanaian and I'm not separating myself. And I am part of Ghana music industry. And I'll entertain you whether you like it or not.
And I'll entertain you whether you like it or not. We are there. And finally, before I go, the prestigious Ghana Music Awards has officially opened nominations for its 25th edition, and the stage is set for another year of epic music recognition. Charterhouse, organizers of the awards, opened nominations on January 29 today for musicians whose works generated the most public excitement within the calendar year to file for this year's awards. Now, works must be released between January 1, 2023 and December 31, 2023 to be eligible for nomination. Now, musicians who wish to be part of the 25th Ghana Music Awards have now till the 29th of February to submit their works. Now, the Music Awards aims to, among other things, recognize and celebrate the hard work and dedication of the various players in Ghana's music industry. Well, that's how we wrap up on the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. I am Akofa. Thanks for tuning in. The 3FM Drive team continues. Keep your dial locked on 3FM 92.7.